No, no, no. Sell, sell, sell. Sell the whole company if you have to. I don't care. They're all fired. Do you know who I am? I have a Jeep T3 RS. No, a Jeep T3 RS. Oh, this is a Wendy's? Well, in that case, can I get a... Hi there, I'm Grant, and this is my 2004 Jeep Wrangler Rubicon. And this Wrangler is of the TJ generation. And in my opinion, the TJ is one of the best off-roading platforms that money can buy, at the expense of some on-road drivability.
You're probably wondering how I got here. You see, that was my first Jeep. And for those of you concerned, I did in fact survive.
Where the TJ suffers most is on-road drivability, as it's slow, doesn't ride very well, doesn't handle very well, and the MPG is pretty laughable. Now this TJ is actually my daily driver, and you might be asking, Grant, why would you put yourself through that? Well, here's the thing. I volunteer for search and rescue out here in Colorado, and I use my Jeep to do it. And that puts me out in the mountains in some pretty rough terrain pretty frequently. And this TJ Rubicon has been the best tool for me to have out there. Because of that, I don't want to get rid of the Jeep, but since it's my only vehicle, it got me thinking about what I could do to make that daily driving experience just a little bit better. A lot of my complaints about the on-road drivability of this Jeep could be solved by throwing money at it towards the suspension and drivetrain upgrades. But as this still is my daily driver, I can't afford to have it be down for that long. I'm gonna wait till I have a secondary vehicle to do those. So for the time being, I need a solution that is cheap, easy, and quick. The formula for every great solution. That got me thinking about my biggest headache with this Jeep, and that is that somewhere in here there is a giant magnet that is attracted to every single gas station on the face of planet Earth. And until I can find that magnet, maybe I could do something else to it to lessen that attractive force.
Much better.
That gave me the idea for a test to see if my hypothesis was true. For my test, I'm going to take my Jeep through 2 runs of an identical loop of both on and off-road driving, highway driving, road driving, trail driving, and even some rock crawling. I'm going to use the Jeep like I normally would to establish an average use case that can be replicated for both runs. For the first run, the Jeep is going to be unmodified, so just like you see it here, full top, full doors, nothing special. This is how I drive it every day, and this will help establish a baseline for comparison later. For the second run, I'm going to strip as much weight off the Jeep as I reasonably can, including the top and doors, to see if that cumulative weight will result in a greater MPG, or will all the extra openings to the inside create more drag and actually make my MPG worse. Once the Jeep is stripped down, I anticipate that I'll be able to sell it for more money, as I will be using the philosophy of a certain German car manufacturer when it comes to automotive toys that are road legal, whether those toys are track cars or off-road cars. Once you start taking things out of it, you can charge more money. Now, I won't be able to take out a ton of weight as this Jeep doesn't weigh much to begin with, but my goal is to at least make it a little lighter. To simplify it, what I'm trying to do is to turn this into this. Get it? Because it's a lighter shade of blue. That's right, I will be turning this Jeep into a Jeep T3 RS. For transparency, and for those doing the homework that I assigned them, now where did I put all my 47 watermelons? I'm going to be noting a few specifications about the Jeep that are relevant to the MPG, but won't be changing between runs. Under the hood, this Wrangler Rubicon has the legendary Jeep 4-liter straight 6 that, from the factory, produced 190 horsepower and 235 pound-feet of torque. Now this engine is mostly stock aside from a cowl intake that serves as a cold air intake, so those numbers might be slightly increased, but I don't anticipate by much. It's mated to a new venture NV3550 5-speed manual transmission that is backed by a new process NP241OR transfer case that is specific to the Rubicon for its 4-to-1 ratio in low range. It's sitting on a set of Dana 44 axles front and rear that are specific to the TJ Rubicon with 410 gearing and air-actuated locking differentials. And it's sporting a set of 285/70 R17 BF Goodrich KO2 tires, which have an overall diameter of about 33 inches. With that, let's get to Porsche-ifying this Jeep. Before I turn this into a Jeep T3 RS, I need to set a little bit of a baseline. Now currently, it is in its regular use state of full top, full doors, full interior, and has some additional weight of the spare tools I keep in there, some light recovery gear just in case for our off-road test, along with other odds and ends that I just keep there on a day-to-day basis. Now this is how I drive it normally every day, so this should give me a pretty good average over my whole loop of what MPG to expect for a baseline. My testing method is pretty simple. I'm gonna head to the nearest gas station and fill the Jeep up with gas till the first click. Then I'm gonna wait 30 seconds and fill it up to a second click. After that, I'm gonna take it on a loop of mixed suburban and highway driving out to a trail, run that trail pretty quickly to get a off-road baseline for this, and then head back to the same gas station and refill using the same fueling method. Now that whole trip should be about 130 to 140 miles round trip, so that should give me a good baseline for my average for this. In the spirit of consistency and transparency, I will also be noting the weather at the time of each test. So currently it is about 12:30 in the afternoon. It is mid-July here in Colorado, so it is about 82 degrees Fahrenheit outside, or 28 degrees Celsius. It is partly cloudy and there is a off and on light breeze, so really some ideal conditions for our test. Normally with conditions like these, I would be running no top, no doors, and really having a good time, as that's why I bought the Jeep. But that would mess up the data for my baseline. So because of you guys, I have to have less fun. This is some serious science. This is important. This is data that matters to the mass consumer of the modern age. So therefore, I need to take this seriously. There's no funny business here. These floaties, I mean speed wings, really starting to get annoying. Yeah, seriously. So we're starting the baseline test. I just left the gas station and I am about to pull onto the highway to start that journey. The point of these tests isn't to get the best MPG, as if I was concerned about that, I wouldn't be driving a Jeep. But I do want to see if the weight reduction that I can do will help the MPG and other performance, or will the added drag of all the extra air coming in with the, doors and top off negate any performance increases we see from just the weight reduction. So it's really more of a science experiment, and I think it could be an interesting one. So I've just finished the first highway portion. Pavement is about a quarter mile back and the highway is about a half mile back. I just wanted to get away from some of the noise. I'm here airing down my tires, as even though I'm still a few miles from the trailhead, the road to the trailhead is a pretty rough washboard road. And again, this is how I would normally drive this road. So I'm gonna air down to about 17 PSI is my goal, and then I'll go from there. Yes, I've reached the Jeep's greatest natural enemy, washboards. And this is with lower tire pressure. I'm missed my mark a little bit. I'm at about 16 PSI. So which should be helping me more here, but it's not. Some critics may call the Jeep harsh, and unrefined and rough riding and unsophisticated. That's it. They may say that. You know, I will say, part of the reason why Jeeps ride so rough has to do with the pivotal role they have played in American history and Jeep's desire to carry that philosophy through modern days. Now, I know what you're thinking. Grant, you're talking about the World War II Jeeps. As a matter of fact, no, I am not. Now stick with me. You see, back when settlers wanted to move west to states like Colorado, they needed a means to do so. They weren't gonna walk. And the history books would like you to believe that they did so in ox-pulled carts, but really that is a bad translation of a joke that the early settlers did when really they were using Jeeps. They just called them ox as a playful term. But as you can see, even so many years later, they have generally kept the same construction. You have a canvas roof, you have solid axles, front and rear, and everything feels like it's made of wood. So really props on Jeep for continuing that philosophy of the westward ho and the Oregon Trail into modern days. And frankly, I just love that. Oh boy. In keeping with that same philosophy, Jeep has also added a wonderful safety feature. You see, these emergency brakes are not known for being the most reliable, so what they have done is Jeep has made everything in this Jeep creak and make some sort of noise, so that if for some reason your e-brake fails and your Jeep starts to move, you're gonna hear it and you're gonna know it and you're gonna be able to stop. So, I mean, frankly, what more could you ask for as far as safety goes? Since this test isn't about the off-road capability of this Jeep, nor is it about my skills as a driver off-road, I'm gonna try to make this as easy on myself as possible. So I am in 4-low and I have both of my diffs locked. Hopefully that will allow me to just walk through this trail. What that does is take a lot of the variable in the driver out of this equation and hopefully lead to more accurate data between both tests. Also, making it easier on myself will allow me to, once this is stripped down, give better commentary on the differences that I'm seeing between this test and the stripped down test. This particular trail isn't one that I consider to be difficult by any means, but I chose it for a few reasons. It does have a number of rock obstacles that you need the right line and a good amount of ground clearance, and you might also be on your side like this, to get around. So it is more than just a dirt road. Another reason why I chose this trail is it's one I've run many times. In fact, if you've seen my winching video, this is the same trail. What that means for our test here is I feel the most confident that I can pick the same line and continue the consistency between both tests. Another test I'm running out here is to see if sunscreen is a good alternative for DEET, as I did not realize how many bugs would be out here. Granted, there's been a lot of rain and I should have known better, but here we are. Bring DEET. Well, finally off trail. Took a little bit longer than I anticipated, but that's okay because it shouldn't mess with the results any. I'm gonna air back up to what I was at before, which was 31 PSI, and I'm gonna hit the road and head back home. Hopefully I can make it before it gets too dark. Well, time for the fun part. Time to turn my old Jeep into a Jeep T3 RS, DIY style. I'm gonna strip this thing down as much as reasonably so, and I'll come back and talk about what I've kept on. But for now, just time for me to do some heavy lifting. this point, I've taken off everything that wasn't a necessity for either functionality, safety, or legality. So if it's still on here, it's on here for a reason. As you can see, I reinstalled my little trunk thing here. That's really just to contain some of the basic necessities that I'm bringing and prevent them from rolling about while I drive and potentially falling out. Some of the basic necessities that I'm bringing with me include my air compressor, my impact, some basic recovery gear, first aid kit, and some other miscellaneous tools. I know that this is a weight loss test, but as I will be going off-road, these are some of the basic necessities that I always bring with me off-road. I will not go without them, so they're staying. It is good to note that I did also have everything you see here on my first test. So just to recap, doors are gone, passenger seat is gone, rear seat is gone, top is gone, windows are gone, center console is gone, all of the carpeting is gone. It's a lot of small weight that could very well add up to a good amount of weight.
This right here, do you see this right here? This right here is my Jeep T3 RS, the ultra high performance, stripped down, lightweight, driver focused Jeep made for carving up corners on trails better than any other brick on wheels. This is a very serious machine that requires a very skilled driver, which is why I have my driving goggles to keep me focused and my high-vis wings for extra speed and extra safety. This is one wicked machine. This is the second run, the stripped down run of my Jeep test here to see if losing all of that weight will help my MPG or will the added drag of all the extra openings make my MPG worse. It's about 1 o'clock in the afternoon now, and it's a little warmer than the first run. It's about 90 degrees Fahrenheit outside or 32 degrees Celsius, but the other conditions are pretty similar. It's partly cloudy and there is a light breeze.
Now I can feel it getting warmer, so I'm gonna go ahead and get on the way here. Plus I've gotten enough strange looks from being in one spot, looking the way I do, that probably best if I move along before people get worried? Who knows? Now this isn't part of the actual test. This is me driving to the gas station that I used in the first run to start this run officially, but I can already tell this is gonna be interesting, to say the least. Now, since this is a purely scientific test, there is no funny business here. Everything you see is for safety or additional speed. As I wanna make sure that I can make this test as accurate as possible. Starting the second run here. About to merge onto a major highway with a fairly high speed limit. Should be the fun part of this ride. We'll see. And we'll also see if that's where the audio cuts out. It very well 75 with a minimum speed limit of 50, so let's hope we can maintain that. Right now, I'm on a section of highway that is one lane each way. It's more of the scenic route, mainly because I wanted to avoid the 7% grade hill climb that comes out of Denver there, but it also diversifies what kind of road that I go on, just giving me a more, well-rounded result. And this is the same route that I ran the first run. I'm not noticing a huge difference between this setup and the fully kitted out setup, but at speeds around 40, 45, I don't know how much I would see. I do expect that I'll see more of a difference actually off-road though, so we'll see when I get there. This section of road is fantastic for a Sunday drive, especially when you have on the top of the top like this. It is a scorcher today, so the additional airflow definitely helps me feel a little bit more comfortable, but you have the fresh air, you have all the trees, you're following a river the entire way up, so it tends to bring the temperatures down just a bit. Same air down spot as last time, and I'm shooting for that same 16 PSI that I ran on the first run, and then after that, time to hit the trail. Now it is time for the trail portion of this test. What serious Jeeps like these are made for. At this point, I'm about halfway through the trail. You see, I started the trail about here, and I will be finishing the trail about here. Serious stuff for some serious Jeeps. In all seriousness, this is where I consider the actual trail to start, as everything leading up to here is really just a graded but unmaintained road. It is bumpy, yes, but it's not very technical. Right off screen to your left here is where the first rock garden starts, and so this is where I consider this to transition from a rough road to a very easy trail. Just like in the first run, I will be leaving the sway bar connected, as really I just don't want to deal with it, and this isn't a trail that really calls for it. I will also be using the diff lockers whenever possible, as once again, this isn't a test about my skills as a driver or this vehicle's off-road capability, but rather we are looking at the comparison between the two states discussed, and if I want the most accurate results, I need to remove as much driver interference as possible. So I'm trying to make this as easy on myself, just so that the Jeep can do the work. With all of that out of the way, it's time to get rolling on the fun stuff. Avoid breaking an axle on an obstacle like that, diff lockers. I've been through a good amount of the trail now, at least past a lot of the most technical stuff. And as far as the driving experience, there might be a slight difference in how nimble it feels compared to when it was fully dressed out. But what I can say is that it definitely inspires a lot more confidence than when it's fully kitted out. Although I don't know how much the interior stuff really contribute to that, as that's mainly the doors and the top being off. I just have better visibility all around of what I'm next to, what I'm coming up on, and I mean, I can see my front driver's side wheel right here when I lean out just slightly, so I know exactly where I'm gonna place it. Whereas, you know, if I had the door on, I might have to roll the window down and kind of, you know, finagle my way out. This is just a quick glance, bam, and I'm good. And I guess just being closer to, I mean, nature, yes, but also just your surroundings and having a better feel of exactly where you're planted definitely helps to feel a little bit more confident when going over things. Hell, even with these driving goggles that kind of block the outer peripheral of my view and they like to fog up, I still feel like this is no issue at all, exactly where I want to be. I am doing my best to follow the same lines that I did before. Granted, you know, these trails change every single day, but generally speaking, they overall remain mostly the same, and I know which paths I went down, and I know when I got high or low, and I'm sticking to that. Most of this trail is really just a lot of small to medium rocks, almost like you're driving through a riverbed, but not quite. But you're going over rocks that are the size of, you know, ranging between baseballs to watermelons, just constantly. As you can see, I kind of bounce over stuff. That's what a lot of this trail is, and it's not necessarily very technical, but you do want to watch where you're placing your wheels, as that will not only help with the comfort of your drive, but also if you place a wheel wrong, you do have the potential to break something like a tie rod with your steering or an axle shaft just by landing in precisely the wrong spot.
You know, I make a lot of Jeep jokes, and rightfully so, because they're pretty easy to make fun of, but this is what reminds me why I bought one. You know, you can get to some truly spectacular places in what is essentially a souped up golf cart and have a ton of fun doing it, you know? Just no doors, no top, a lot of fresh air. This is my definition of fun, you know? And this is one of my favorite trails because it's not a very hard trail. I don't have to be challenged. I don't have to stress myself out if I don't want to. I can just run it and have a good time and see some good sights. In a well-equipped Jeep like this, with the Rubicon trim, with the lockers and the lower range transfer case and the beefed up axles over standard Jeeps, I can just point this thing and it'll go. And all for relatively low money. Yes, I know the new ones are very expensive, but this is an 04, the TJ generation, with the Rubicon trim, and I purchased this in 2024 with a manual transmission with 112,000 miles for about $15,000. And that was probably a little low at the time, but still within the realm of reason. And that is for a nice one. You can get a TJ that is not a Rubicon trim that might be in worse shape for well under $10,000 and put things like lockers in it or better gearing or better axles and be able to just conquer just about anything. The size of these things, especially these older ones, these TJs and these LJs, is just perfect for basically going anywhere. You know, a TJ with a long arm kit and 35s can do probably 99% of trails in the state of Colorado. Now, that's just my opinion. I haven't actually tested that, but they're that good. Yes, I've made a lot of comparisons to a certain stripped down track car that you can buy from a German manufacturer. And really the reason I make that comparison is, yes, it's a lot of fun to make fun of that, but that is the right tool for the job when you are on the track. This is the right tool for the job when you're out here. It's gonna be better than anything else that rolls off a factory line, I promise you. You know, there's a lot of people out there that will say their build is better than a lot of Jeeps, and that may be true, but they had to build it. As far as something that comes off the production line, ready to tackle just about anything, a Wrangler, especially with the Rubicon trim, there's nothing out there that can beat it.
All right, I am off trail, filling back up to highway pressure, and it's time to get back on the road and head back into town. Well, the results are in, and honestly, I'm a bit surprised. On the first run, fully kitted out, I averaged 12.87 miles per gallon, while on the second run, stripped down, I averaged 13.92 miles per gallon, over a full mile per gallon with just a little bit of work. While 1 mile per gallon over 130 miles isn't a lot, coming into this test, I didn't think there was going to be any change. Granted, I know that removing weight from a car can absolutely increase the MPG, but I didn't think the relatively small amount of weight that I pulled out was really going to make much of a difference, especially when coupled with the added drag of all of the extra surfaces catching wind with the top and doors off. Well, I'm not breaking any records here, and it's not like I made a brand new Prius competitor. Analyzing scientific test results and what they mean for the overall problem, MPG in my case, especially when those results are unexpected, is really what scientific experimentation is all about. As while this is a silly little fun video for the internet, it could very well inspire further curiosity in me, you, or somebody else to take things further and find some serious scientific results.
And one MPG really may not mean anything for this test, as there is a number of different variables that could have skewed the data one way or the other that I had no reasonable way of tracking, as this wasn't the most scientific test. And if you're upset with me about this not being the most scientific test, you clicked on a video about turning a Jeep into a Porsche. So maybe we both need to look in the mirror and reevaluate some of our life choices. If you've enjoyed this, please consider subscribing. It really helps me out. If you think I did something wrong here, let me know by leaving a comment. This channel is all about learning a thing or two and having fun while doing it, so constructive criticism is welcome. If you want to see me take this further with more weight off, or if you just want to see me do something else entirely with the Jeep, let me know that too, as I want to bring you what you want to see. If you want to learn more about scientific automotive testing, real scientific automotive testing, check out Society of Automotive Engineers and their resources. If you're a university student or soon to be, check and see if your school has a SAE chapter, as you can do things like automotive design competitions to further your education. If you made it this far, thanks for watching. I sincerely appreciate it, as I love making content like this and would love to make more. But for now, stay curious, stay safe, and wheel responsibly.